I raised hundreds and thousands of dollars for my nonprofit organization, and I paid myself $6,000 a year. And this was for like a decade. So just imagine that. Imagine trying to crawl your way out of that level of scarcity into abundance. In the past 7 months, I have completely transformed my life. And not because I had some sort of change in specific circumstances, but because I shifted my mindset. And maybe you can relate to this, but for a really, really long time, things felt like they were just really unnecessarily difficult all the time. Kind of like when you're swimming against the current and you're working like really, really hard just to stay alive and really pretty much in the same place and not move backwards, you know? So I get sick of things being really hard all the time and I start making these drastic changes. I moved to a new country, literally got a whole family, changed my career from nonprofit to something more lucrative. And it was still hard. And I was still just struggling a lot with money, even though I was past the 6K mark. It just felt like no matter how much I tried to convince myself I was comfortable with success and financial security and wealth, I couldn't really ever get past just scraping by. And also, I want to mention before getting into where I am now, just so you understand where I'm coming from, and that actually I had absolutely no leverage when I left the nonprofit organization that I founded, like nothing, no savings, no assets, lots of debt, a scarcity mindset, and tiny humans that I decided to create and was then financially responsible for. I am married and my husband has an income, which is substantial, but like most families, it doesn't cover all of our expenses. So I'm responsible for the other half. So this transitional period was also a hard time, right? Because I didn't have anything to work with. And probably most people would go get a job, but I've literally been self employed for my entire adult life, which has been over 20 years. And I'm really an entrepreneur at heart, and I just can't get behind that. So I was also willing to take the risk. But on the other end, I was wondering, when are things going to get easy? Like, why is everything so challenging all the time? And look, I don't know your personal circumstances, and I'm sure I have societal advantages, as most people do in one way or another. But I just think, whatever your situation is, and this is what I'm getting to with all of this, is that if I can make this shift from this really exaggerated state of scarcity and terrible mindset, so can you. And on the other side of this shift, I really don't have a lot of anxiety anymore. I don't get it very much. And I used to be a very highly anxious person. I can now get a full night's sleep without any medication. And before, I used to experience insomnia regularly. And I've grown my business in ways I literally never thought was possible. And probably the biggest transformation is that I literally don't worry about money anymore. I don't really stress about it. And that's, of course, really difficult when you're an entrepreneur because your income will fluctuate no matter what. And there's plenty of times when I don't really know for sure how much money will arrive and when. And so it's really easy to get lost in the fear, but I don't worry about it anymore. I really don't. I choose not to. I'm living in a nice big house that I just love in a great location. My kids are in a really nice private school. I have this amazing family, a career I'm really passionate about where I have a ton of freedom. And honestly, it all just feels surreal. And I'm just so, so grateful. But y'all, it took me 42 years to figure this out. That's why I really want to share what I've learned, because I don't think it needs to take that long. And of course, I wish I had known all this stuff sooner. And it definitely doesn't have to take you that long. If you're looking to make a similar shift, you can do this at any age, and it can happen pretty fast for you at any point when you decide that that's something you want to do. So in this video, I'm going to break down the principles and the highlights of what needs to occur to be able to make this mindset shift. And of course, there's a lot of things that need to occur, but I pulled out some of the more fundamental principles and actionable steps so you can start the work today if you want. Hi, I'm Dyani, and if you're looking to build business, wealth, and freedom, you're in the right place. And if this topic that we're going over today resonates with you and you feel like you're ready to start working through some of this yourself, check out my Mindset Reset mini course, which I'm going to plug into the video description. It walks you through this process with journal prompts, actionable steps, and just a little bit more of a structured approach to how you can further execute this shift for yourself. And I've kept it at a very accessible price point. So definitely check it out if you want to bring this to the next level. And also, I should mention, for limited time, I am offering one-on-one coaching, and that's because I want to get to know you and what your needs are and things like that, and because I love doing it. But whether you're building a real estate business, another type of business, or honestly just trying to figure out what the hell you want to do with your life, this is one of my favorite things to do. So check that out as well. That'll also be in the video description down below. And just in general, don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions or would just like some outside perspective about your life. And also, please let me know how this resonates, like what you think about it. If you have any comments, I'm really interested in hearing from you. All right, so let's get into it. As a real estate agent and coach for realtors, I started out planning this video for real estate agents because with the job that's 100% commission based, your mindset can make a huge difference and is absolutely an essential step to having a successful business. So if you're a real estate agent, you should definitely watch this, as mindset will ultimately determine if you succeed with this career or not. But honestly, this is not just for real estate agents. This can apply to anyone. Although I should mention that I'm talking from a place of an entrepreneur. So there's a little bit of an emphasis on survival. Like, you literally need to strengthen your mindset if you're going to survive as an entrepreneur, because when you don't have a guaranteed monthly income, this is where the hard work with your mind really needs to kick in. And this kind of mindset shift can mean the difference between going for it and pursuing that business dream and having a life of freedom and endless possibilities, or outsourcing your livelihood for the illusion of stability. Or the third option, which is freelancing and having the freedom, but living in a state of scarcity and barely scraping by. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned, is that it's not one or the other. You can be self-employed and make money. And in this video, I'm going to give you more insight on how, because I really, really strongly believe in everything I'm about to say. And I wholeheartedly believe you can have the freedom and abundance that you desire. So first, I want to talk about actionable steps. I love actionable steps because I don't just want to sit around thinking about like, oh yeah, change your mindset and things will all change. It's this abstract thing. Like, what do I do? Like, what do I do? So one of the things it took me a really, really long time to figure out is that you need to dig into your subconscious. And I really want to emphasize that because, of course, subconscious is something that you're not entirely aware of. And one of the first steps I took was getting consciously comfortable with having money, or the idea of having money. And I was just like, oh, please, I'm very comfortable being rich. I mean, I could tell you to the dime what I would do with all the income and exactly what I wanted: the cars, the house, the real estate portfolio, the investment accounts, everything already set up, right? But, I reluctantly did some of these exercises to dig into the subconscious anyway. And I'm going to share some with you. But one is listing out any negative feelings you might have with money in general. Because one thing that makes a lot of sense is that you can't attract and accumulate wealth if you hate rich people, right? It's not going to work out. You're not going to attract something that you hate. And I already knew at this point, let's say, when I realized that the subconscious was probably a little bit more profound than the actual conscious mind in this process. But I realized I didn't hate rich people or think there was anything wrong with having wealth or anything like that. But I did the exercises anyway, and I was literally shocked by what came up. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background here for context. Before I became a real estate broker and coach, I lived in Nicaragua for a decade, where I founded a nonprofit organization to help children. I was like 24 at the time when I founded the organization. And Nicaragua is the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So you can imagine, when you're surrounded by poverty every single day, it changes your relationship with money and the environment, where it makes it a little bit less comfortable to want to have money, right? And then in addition to that, I'm in a leadership position as an NGO founder. And as a result, I was being publicly scrutinized for making any income at all, which explains why I only paid myself $6,000 a year, right? I was like, oh, yeah, I can live off $500 a month. I don't need anything. I swear I'm only doing it for the cause. Like, for some reason, I felt like I had to prove myself to these haters. And actually, I was recently watching this interview with Mr. Beast, and he was talking about the more good he does, the more hate he gets. And it's really true. And this is a whole other part of this, right? Like, if you want to be big and you want to grow and you want to be successful, you definitely cannot let haters dictate the direction that you take, right? So, this was a big mistake I made in hindsight, just feeling pressured to these expectations that if I really care about helping people, I should practically live like a monk. And that if I wanted to prove, as if founding a nonprofit organization that provided educational opportunities to thousands of people didn't demonstrate enough that I cared about the community, I somehow believed that I needed to demonstrate sacrifice to also prove that I was a good person. So, as a result of living off this very limited income and feeling this pressure to prove myself, I internalized beliefs that money was somehow morally complicated and fully adopted a scarcity mindset. And I really believed that wanting abundance and wealth would make me selfish. But meanwhile, I'm working with these philanthropists who are donating, and they are these incredibly influential and impactful people that are making this huge difference in the world. And I really admire them. And they have achieved a net worth that allows them to be comfortable and to be able to grow and make an impact. So there was something contradictory there. And so deep down, I think I did know that money's not evil, right? Especially because I would successfully raise hundreds and thousands of dollars. But I was like, this is destined for the cause. I don't get anything. I don't need anything. I'm fine with nothing. And people would praise me for it. Even these investors, these donors, they would say, well, she doesn't need money. She doesn't take that much for herself. That's more of a reason to donate to this cause. And it's like, well, I do need money. Everybody needs money, right? So anyway, I was really in this mentality. I'm really embarrassed to admit this and talk about it. And it's pretty vulnerable, but I do want to give you an idea. I feel like it really illustrates just how toxic this mindset was. So I literally chose for several years, and this is a choice. I was not a victim. I had the opportunity and the option to live otherwise, right? But I chose to live in poverty in the developing world. At times, I lived in a place that didn't have running water or a real roof. I took bucket showers with cold water. And over time, my health started to decline. And I wound up with severe stomach pains due to bacteria that was building in my gut, like a bacterial imbalance. And at one point, I wound up in the Centro de Salud in the town I was living in Nicaragua, which is the health center that's free. And I was attached to an IV, and I remember, kind of dipping in and out of consciousness, and I had to pee in a cup, but there was no water to even wash my hands. The whole thing was just this unhygienic experience. And when the test came back from the urine sample, it showed that the number of bacteria was incontable. So it was like uncountable. Like, it was so much bacteria that it was, it was an extreme amount, right? And they were like, you have to stay here, you can't leave. And I was looking at all of these injured people, and I was in this very hot room, and there was really not any even running water, and it was just a very desolate, weird experience. And I just really wanted to get out of there. I felt like being stuck in this Centro de Salud wasn't really going to help me. And I was like, I've had it. I'm out of here. So I leave and I walk down. It was like up this hill. So I kind of walked down the hill, and I was like, I'm gonna get out of the slums. You know what I mean? Like, it's gone too far, right? And I was woozy and sick, obviously. And so I had started hanging out with some people in Managua, which is the capital of Nicaragua. And there's not really a lot of middle class, right? It is very developing world. There is extreme poverty and there is extreme wealth, and there isn't a lot in the middle, right? But in Managua, there is a little bit more of a white collar community, just people that have full-time jobs in the corporate world and wear suits and drive cars. And there is more of a middle class. And I had found some friends there in business, and I just felt a little bit more human there than in this surf town that I was living in that was very unstructured, right? And so I was like, I'm going to escape to Managua, and I'm out of here. I'm out of this. I'm just done. And so I went to the house I was staying in and I just started packing up my stuff, like literally in a trash bag. And I was like, I'm getting a car and going to Managua, which is 3.5 hours away. So I'm packing up my stuff and I get there. I had a friend there and she's like, yeah, you can stay with me. We actually have an extra room, which is partially why I went there. And I go into the extra room and start unpacking my stuff. And it's just like dust is everywhere. My clothes are basically tattered. I was like, what have I been doing? It was just this like, what is happening to my life? And I realized as I unpacked my clothes that there were holes in them and they had been chewed through by what appeared to be mice. And I even opened up some books of mine and found these mouse bodies with nothing, like no bones or anything, no blood, nothing in the middle, just these kind of fur outlines. And they were like inside my books. And it was pretty gross, right? And so then I just was like, oh God, like it's itchy, itchy. I'm so itchy. I'm so itchy. And the place where I was staying, there's this woman who came 3 times a week to clean the house. Everybody was at work, my friends. And she's like, yeah, something's up. And, look through my hair. And it's like, oh, yeah, you have a ton of lice. So this was essentially like the rock bottom because I had mice, lice, and parasites. And just to drive it home for how much of this was this weird mindset of like, I'm suffering and everything's hard. And it was totally self created. I got on a bus in Managua to go get Lice shampoo and I had like $20 on me and it was in a fanny pack and somebody pickpocketed out of my fanny pack like on the way to the farmacia. So when I got to the pharmacy, I couldn't actually buy the Lice shampoo. So, I mean, all right. So talk about rock bottom, right? So at this point, even a donor told me like you need to make more money, right? And I was like, you're right. So I started saying like I'm just going to pay myself more. And I just did, right? And I was like, I don't even know if I can afford it. Like I have all this stuff and all this stuff, but I just started paying myself a little bit more, And I was like, you know what? I'm going to double that. And then I doubled that. And then I doubled it again. And I started getting what was a more sufficient income. And as I started to save up, there were two things that I felt like I really wanted that were going to make me feel more human. And one was just like new pajamas. Like I just wanted like soft, clean, warm pajamas. Like that made a big deal. That instead of just like sleeping in, shirts, I wanted pajamas. And then I wanted to go to the dentist. And so when I got to the dentist and had to pay, out of pocket to have my teeth cleaned, but this is Nicaragua, so it's not as expensive. I had 12 cavities and I had never had a cavity before in my life, but I had 12 cavities. So that is how far I took the scarcity thing. So you can imagine that over time, those ideas solidified into beliefs about myself and what I deserved. And even though I had these come to Jesus moments where I was like, I'm getting out of this and I deserve better, the mindset itself followed me for years and it translated into consistent struggles with income generation. I also inherently believed I was disadvantaged because I hadn't grown up wealthy. And some of this is the environment I was around in the town I lived in Nicaragua, in San Juan del Sur. There's a lot of poverty. Then there's a local middle class that at the time when I left was doing a lot better than they were, really becoming more formed. And then there's the wealthy born into it community. And then for foreigners, there's people that come and they spend about a year living off their savings and maybe they supplement it with a very low paying hospitality gig and they're backpackers, right? But then there are actually quite a few people that, I was friends with that I interacted with on a daily basis that were just people who had trust funds. There was no explaining why they had money. They didn't really talk about it, but they had come from wealth and they didn't work. And they had nice stuff, like nice cars, lived in nice places. That was just it. And so I looked at these people and I was like, oh, I don't have what they have, so I'll never be successful. And I believed that being a woman and a foreigner made success harder for me as well. People think I'm weird because I have an accent and things are difficult because I'm an immigrant and being a woman does have disadvantages, of course. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but there are a lot of very successful women, right? So this perception is also a choice. But I saw myself as someone constantly fighting uphill against circumstances. As I mentioned earlier, swimming against the current. And when I made friends, I would just sit around and complain with people about how our lives are so hard. And that was what friendship was for me, just commiserating with people about how we're broke and coexisting in this perception that life is something happening to us. So all of this rock bottom stuff in Nicaragua, this was over a decade ago. And I was convinced when I hit this juncture and leading up to this light bulb moment where I made this mindset shift, I was convinced that it was so long ago that it did not impact me at all. But as I began to dig into my subconscious through journaling about any and all potential money blocks, because money would come, but it wouldn't stick around, and it was just harder than it should be, I knew that there was some sort of block, and I discovered a really big one. So one, that free writing was, if I desire money and receive money, I am a scam artist, which is literally the most ridiculous thing in the world, right? But that's what people told me in Nicaragua. And I was constantly defending myself against this accusation. And another one, and I don't know if this is a thing, was like privilege shame. Like, being ashamed of any privilege that I have. So like white privilege, American privilege, whatever it was. It's like I thought that somehow by handicapping myself financially, I was evening the playing field, which, just to let you know, if you're considering doing that, it doesn't work. And it's something that I highly do not recommend. If you want to create impact and empower people, you do that from a place of happiness, security, and abundance, not from a place of deprivation and suffering. So anyway, once you do something similar and you try to unblock yourself, you might really be surprised by what comes up. But I definitely do recommend you challenge yourself to tell yourself what the heck is actually going on. Because the first step to solving a problem is acknowledging that it exists. So before we move on to the next point, here's a prompt for you. What's the worst thing that could happen to me if I get money? What is the worst thing people could say about me? So take that, free write about it, and just let your imagination go wild with it. Don't focus on that much. Just let the pen take over. Then take your replies and flip them around. For example, for me, the flip around would be, there is nothing bad, wrong, or deceitful about having more than sufficient income. Or, earning money is not a scam, which again, is ridiculous, right? But these are the things your subconscious will hone in on if you don't dig them up and pay attention to them and then deconstruct them and disempower them. Okay, so this is a really big one when it comes to moving forward and making an actual plan. So connect your daily actions with your zone of genius. So one of the books I read, and I have been literally consuming personal development content, and one book that I really liked was Gay Hendricks' book called The Big Leap. The whole book is about battling self-sabotage by essentially embracing your zone of genius. And when I tell you that I was the queen of self-sabotage, I am not joking. So I really also was like, why am I self-sabotaging all the time? So this book actually really spoke to me, and it helped me as well in understanding what I was doing to sabotage my own success. So your zone of genius is something you do that you have done before, that you love doing, and it's easy and natural, and you're really good at it. So you might even immediately know what that is, or you might have to do some digging. For me, it was always teaching, coaching, and empowering people. So as a real estate agent, I didn't necessarily just decide, oh, forget the whole career. Let's drop everything and start a new career when I realized this. And I don't recommend starting over, especially if you're building a business. One of the most powerful things you could do is never give up. So what I did is I became more conscious that I need to do these things, right? Because they're what I'm actually really good at, because they're connected to my greater purpose. And so I consciously connected it with what I already do. I leaned even more into investment consultation and relocation guidance for real estate clients. And in addition, I started teaching real estate agents to help empower them to generate their own leads and gain control over their business. And I started volunteering in leadership positions more actively to help nonprofit leaders in Mexico grow and build their nonprofit organizations, and started contributing to AMPI, which is the association that regulates the real estate industry, which is essentially run as a nonprofit organization and relies heavily on volunteer support and has big ambitions and overarching goals to make the community a better place in the real estate industry. So my contributions of time and expertise to AMPI have been very enthusiastically received. And I've been really happy to share them. Like, I get out of these meetings, I have a huge smile on my face. I get out of a coaching call, I have a huge smile on my face. I just talked to a client and I really just poured out a consultation, and they're just so grateful for the support. And I love doing it, right? And that energy, that's how you vibrate at a higher frequency, which is a whole other thing, right? But that energy is really powerful. There isn't just the dream of doing something you love. There's a whole way to structure it into your life so that you are consistently committed to it, so that you can be more successful and achieve your goals. So now I'm in my element, right? Also, from a more logistical standpoint, when you start helping people, your value is enhanced and there are more income opportunities that naturally arise. So this also helped me diversify my cash flow and become more intentional about my lead generation. And as a result, I consistently started hitting my monthly income goals. And because of that, my husband, for example, who's a merchant marine and works offshore, he's been able to be home more often. My family has been able to move into a nicer, bigger home. We made investments into my business that once felt impossible. And we started planning international vacations that we had gone years without taking. And I want to be really clear about something. This wasn't because of my content or my digital marketing strategy, though that certainly doesn't hurt. But it happened because I stopped operating from fear and scarcity and started shifting the beliefs that are underneath everything. So let's talk about the most important underlying belief of literally anything. As we say in Philly, first of all, not for nothing, number one, we have to choose love over fear. I've understood pretty much my whole life that this is important at a superficial level. My mom used to always say it when I was younger, you have to choose love over fear. And recently, I needed my high school yearbook to prove I grew up in the US to secure US citizenship for my daughter who was born in Mexico, which is a whole other story. But in the yearbook, of course, I went on a trip down memory lane once my dad sent it to me here in Mexico. And my goal that I had written in there was to make decisions based on love, not fear. So I know I've always wanted to embody this, but I never actually did until now. In A Course in Miracles, which is essentially a self-study spiritual thought system that explains the theoretical foundation and metaphysical system of the mind, and obviously it's a little complex, but it's a guide people use in the personal development world. And they say a miracle is choosing love over fear. And faith is also related to this because fear is ultimately a lack of faith and a lack of trust in the universe that causes you to try to control things. Controlling things creates resistance that repels the flow of money and energy and the things you want. You have to let go. This is how you go with the current instead of fighting against the current. I know religion is a touchy subject for a lot of people, and faith can mean different things to different people. Spirituality, religion, trust in the universe, trust in yourself, or simply that things can work out even when you can't fully see how yet. To me, that's what faith really is. It's a lack of fear, just this belief that there's this safety net that's just there and it's going to be okay. And it's not pretending like hard things don't exist or exhibiting blind optimism. It's just making a choice not to give fear all of the power and trusting that even if things feel uncertain, difficult, or uncomfortable, you'll figure it out and keep moving anyway, because fear becomes one of the biggest setbacks in your belief system. In real estate, for example, fear keeps you from posting the video, calling the lead, following up, investing in yourself, raising your standards, trusting yourself, or even believing success is available to you. You don't want to set yourself up for disappointment, so you just choose not to even believe it. And so fear is almost easier to choose. Love requires more strength and bravery, and fear is the default. So it makes sense why we all fall into that, right? Fear says you're behind, you're not ready, that someone else is more qualified. It's literally like the devil and the angel on your shoulder, and fear is all the things the devil says to you. You can't do it. You're terrible. Everyone's laughing at you. Give up now. So this is how fear kind of keeps you stuck in your comfort zone. The problem is we want to change while continuing the exact same routines, habits, and thought patterns that created our current reality. But real change requires this push. And to create a real shift, you have to make this uncomfortable push by doing something that is not totally familiar to you. So it could be from a business standpoint, posting on social media when you feel really awkward about putting yourself out there, or trying to learn marketing when you feel really overwhelmed, having conversations with people that you're kind of intimidated by, or trying something before you feel 100% ready to do it. But if you stay inside the exact same comfort zone and routine, chances are you'll continue getting the exact same results. Growth requires movement. And movement usually feels a little bit uncomfortable at first. But choosing love over fear, or trust over fear, faith over fear, however you want to call it, it changes how you show up. And instead of asking, what if I fail? You start asking, what if this actually works? And instead of waiting until you feel confident, you start understanding that confidence usually comes after action, not before it. So in order to really put this shift into action, I started doing all these kind of weird things that I would never normally do, that I definitely did not want to do to break out of my comfort zone. I started creating a course that I'd never created before, pitching myself to people running these organizations. I signed up for a random mastermind online that I actually had to then also attend and like interact with these people. And I started giving presentations to hundreds of people as a result after putting myself out there, right? Then there was the next level. Like, oh yeah, we like what you're saying. Why don't you do this presentation? Next thing I know, I was also teaching in-person classes for the first time in literally a decade. So you take action and then you feel confident, and then you take more action and then you feel more confident, right? And this is how you change your energetic frequency. You just keep elevating more and more and more. And it all starts with that first initial action. Like, for example, I didn't even really want to do this video. I just felt like it's kind of vulnerable, but it's something I just feel like I know I need to share. And I put it off for a really long time. It's dark outside now because I spent all day procrastinating, which is a form of self-sabotage. I'm going to put it out there, right? If you're seeing it now, it's out there, and I push myself to do it. And that is a big part of the process, right? And this is how you get unblocked. So one other thing about fear when it comes to money, and I feel like this is an important detail or something that I learned that really impacted me, is when you become an entrepreneur, there is the very real possibility. And this can be the difference between making it and not making it as a self-employed individual or an entrepreneur or solopreneur or whatever your dream is. You could have 1 month where you make $0, and that's a very real possibility. And you could also have a month where you make $100,000, right? Both scenarios are totally possible. And it could all happen in a day. You could get a random call from somebody who needs a property immediately, and it's a high value one because you put yourself out there online and they saw a video and they just call you, right? This kind of thing happens all the time. Or if you have an online business and you put a video and suddenly it drove hundreds of people to buy a course that's been on your storefront that you never really sold that many of, and boom, suddenly you've got the payments coming in, right? This is also possible. That's a possibility. So why focus on the $0 one? Why put your mind into that at all? Because you're essentially manifesting that outcome if that's what you choose to focus on. And what it really is, when you choose to focus on that kind of thing, like your fear about running out of money, it's an addiction to cortisol, which is something that is very common. And I know I have, and probably most people have, is you just like the feeling of all this anxiety and panic, and you just continue to engage with it, but it's not helping you. And it's actually sabotaging you. If you're working hard and you're doing what you need to do to make money, right? Let's say you're a real estate agent and you're pursuing your chosen form of lead generation. So whether you work at a brokerage and you have to sit on the floor, or cold calling, or Instagram or YouTube, you have to trust the person who chose that as your lead generation strategy because you chose it from a calm and strategic place. And then you pursue it and you just do it. And then you're doing your part. And the rest is up to the universe. And it really doesn't matter because you can't control that part. You can only control your part. So why worry about it? You have to let go. Also, another way to look at it is where will you be in 5 years? And where will you be in 10 years if you go hard and you never give up? And for me, I feel like I know what's on the other end. So I just commit to never giving up, like over my dead body. And even if there is a hard month here or there, if you never give up, it doesn't matter because in 5 years, the outcome is the same. In 10 years, the outcome is the same. And you're looking at it from the other end saying, man, thank God I didn't give up. So make that choice now. And this brings me to my next point, which is the next big underlying belief is knowing that it is possible for you. There are tons of people who have successful social media accounts, who run their own businesses, who have high production in the real estate world, who are fit, who are happy, who are rich, whatever. And are 100% of these people coming from a place where they started with some sort of unfair advantage? Let's look at the stats. So, one of the largest US studies, which is Ramsey Solutions National Study of Millionaires, which I know they've been working on for years and is very recent, found that 79% of millionaires received no inheritance at all in the United States. And according to UBS's Billionaire Ambitions report, about 74% of US billionaires are also self made. So, are the people who achieve success all smarter and more capable than you? Probably not. They aren't all exceptionally intelligent or even exceptional at all. Not everyone that achieves success is exceptional. I mean, just look at TikTok. You may see some people who do really well on that platform, and you're like, why? Because that random person with the weird videos and millions of followers, they believed it was possible. That's all. They just believed it was possible for them. I mean, I'm sure they had some strategy and a lot of hard work when it comes to their content generation, but that is the main thing. If you don't believe it's possible for you, it can never happen for you. If you believe it's possible, it can happen for you. So it's really a first step. You just have to believe it's possible. So believe it. Even when it looks like it's impossible, you have to believe it's possible. Beliefs lead to thoughts, lead to action, leads to results. And eventually, your results start reflecting your internal beliefs. So, if those beliefs are that you are a successful realtor, for example, then that's what your results will eventually reflect. Because if deep down you don't actually believe something is possible for you, you'll unconsciously act accordingly, and your results will also reflect that belief. So let's bring it back to real estate. If your belief is, I can't generate my own leads because who am I anyway to do that? Then what happens? You probably don't post consistently. You don't invest time learning marketing. You hesitate to put yourself out there. You second guess yourself. You tell yourself everyone else is more qualified, more established, more charismatic, more attractive, more connected. And then when the leads don't come, the belief is confirmed. See, I knew it. Nobody likes me. I'm not good at this. But really, the belief shaped the behavior. So, step one is simply recognizing the belief as a limiting belief. What story am I repeating to myself? I'm bad at sales. I'm awkward on camera. There are too many agents. I'm too introverted. I don't know enough. People like me don't become top producers. Nobody is going to choose me. That seems like too much work, and I can't do that much work. Notice it because most of the time we treat these thoughts like facts when really they're just stories we've repeated enough times to believe. Then, step two, after just acknowledging it's there, is shifting the narrative. And not like fake positivity or pretending, but like the shift. And so instead of I'm terrible at marketing, maybe it becomes I'm learning marketing. And instead of nobody will choose me, maybe it's the right clients will resonate with me. Instead of I can't generate leads, maybe it becomes I'm learning systems that generate leads. Instead of I'm awkward on video, maybe it becomes I'm getting better every time I do this. So it has to be something you believe. So shifting it to something like you're making progress towards your goal instead of saying like I'm the best at making videos when you don't really believe that, that's not going to work as an affirmation, right? But saying like I'm getting better at making videos, that's something you can get behind. So just keep in mind that eventually your external reality starts reflecting what you internally believe is possible for you. So in that way, you are creating your future with your thoughts. And this is a positive mindset that will change your life. At the end of the day, mindset is not everything, but it does impact everything. It impacts whether you stay stuck or grow, whether you stay consistent or just choose to give up, whether you put yourself out there or talk yourself out of opportunities before they even happen. And I'm not saying mindset replaces action. You still have to market yourself, you still have to improve your skills, follow up with leads, have difficult conversations, and break out of your comfort zone. But mindset changes how you approach all of those things. Because when you start shifting from fear to love, scarcity to abundance, and convert your limiting beliefs to blind faith, you start showing up differently. You stop assuming success is a limited resource that's reserved exclusively for somebody else that isn't you. And you stop telling yourself stories about why you can't do something. There is no ceiling unless you create one. And whatever stage of business you're in right now, whether you're dreaming of starting a business, you're brand new, you're struggling, you're growing, or you're already successful but trying to level up, just remember you can do it. If you're still here and you stuck around to the end and you like this message, please make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. And don't hesitate to leave a comment and let me know how this resonates with you or what your thoughts are, if you agree, if you disagree, whatever you think. And don't forget, if you're interested in exploring this more and you're ready to get to work on that mindset shift, my Mindset Reset course is currently available in pre-sale prices. Until next time, bye.